Hello, my dear audiences. Welcome to the show, East-West Show, exclusively sponsored by Paul Botelli. An Italian men's suit represents class, fashion, culture, technology, everything, life involved. All right. So, Paul, thank you for sponsoring. Today, this little studio of EDI of G&E TV is awarded with the pleasure being visited by our great Congressman Ed Royce of 39th District. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be with EDI.
Good. Thank you for mentioning EDI. We feel proud for being able to represent the community for more than 20 years, of course, not without support, such as yourself, from political leaders. We read from the news, we read from the website and everything. We found that the Congressman Ed Royce, in addition to representing, he is more often than not a fighter to me. He is there, he has the gut to dare fight for what he believes right. For example, education is always the key. Education holds the future of a nation. Be it a family, be it as large as a nation, education is the answer. It's the only answer. Yet, education sometimes has to be challenged. The right of education has to be challenged with discrimination.
That is correct.
Discrimination. Sir, I know that you take a very brave lead in that kind of a fight. So, your ladies, please, sir.
Well, we have challenged Harvard University. We have challenged Princeton. We've gone to the Department of Education. We've gone to the Department of Justice over an issue of discrimination, because every year you can see the results, regardless of how many Asian Americans who have the highest scores graduate and pass the exam with a GPA that's the highest GPA. You still have this discrimination where at 19% every year, that's the percentage that get into Harvard. This is not fair because there's tremendous sacrifice involved on the part of these students to prepare for these exams. And what we want is a system where every student has this decision made on admissions based on merit. And so I'm working with the Asian American Education Association. We are pressing this case, and we're trying to get basic equity, because every student should be merit-based in terms of admissions. And we have discrimination against Asian American students. That's what we're trying to reverse.
You are absolutely right, sir. And as a matter of fact, as a community, we really highly appreciate your fight for that goal.
But the community's involved in that fight too. We have close to 100 different associations that we're working with that are all pressing this case. But I've taken the lead in the House of Representatives, and we are now expanding that to other universities. We do not have this problem, by the way, I should mention, at this point with UCLA and some of the UC universities, because we are seeing a different result, or Caltech and so forth. We're seeing merit-based admissions, but that's not what we're seeing from Harvard and Princeton and Brown, and so that has to be addressed.
And sir, I do have to say that even though it is a very highlighted subject,
yes,
yet at the end of the day, people fail to realize that it is a very bottom line issue. The reason being bottom line is that you're talking about education. You're not talking about coupons, right?
No, exactly.
You're not talking about food stamps, right?
Well, here's the point. In terms of this education, we have to make certain that we have an opportunity for every student to go as far as they can go, and it has to be fair. And we also have to have a focus, for example, on those educational disciplines where there's going to be opportunities for students. Increasingly, we find the engineering labs being closed down. This is an area where I've been pushing for more STEM education. I met today with the head of Cal Poly Pomona to discuss this issue, among others. We want to see a higher focus on STEM. We've just passed the National STEM Act, of which I was a co-sponsor in last year. And what we're trying to do here with STEM is to expand it, get computer science included, but then get all the federal agencies involved in working directly with STEM with our universities so that we create more capacity to graduate more with more degrees in STEM. There's going to be a huge demand in the next 10 years for students with these degrees. And so we're working with these students. I'm head of the Congressional App Challenge, where we work with high school and middle school students to try to get them into STEM in this area in Southern California. So all of this is important for the future of these children, for the number of patents that we develop, for our business growth, for our economic growth in California. And we need to be engaged with Asia in this, because this ultimately, for us on the Pacific Rim, is an opportunity for such wealth creation, opportunity creation, upward social mobility for people.
No wonder people say education/discrimination. Now, by listening to you, I understand discrimination could be found at this end and at this end too.
That's right.
Either way.
That's right.
They can do it in a positive way or even negative way. Or even a positive, more positive way.
The reality is that we should provide every student with everything we can do to encourage them to get interested in different fields. Of course, my special passion is STEM. And by the way, my wife was a professor at Cal Poly Pomona. And I just have seen the impact for these students in terms of then graduating into fields where there are jobs, where there's these great opportunities. And before you know it, they're making their own way. They're creating new companies. They're making new discoveries, whether it's in health or science or whatever field. So it is exciting to see, but we have to end the discrimination in terms of admissions.
Because at the end of the day, you're talking about education. Education to us, to everybody of the common sense, is a group of elite. To make the best out of elite so that you are responsible to the society, to the future, to the human race.
And our goal is to expand education for every student, because Thomas Jefferson had this view that in the United States everyone would have the ability to access education, but we have to be fair about it. We have to recognize that when you've got the best grades and you've sacrificed the most and you know have aced the exam for entrance,
and they stop
you should
say,
not.
Hey, you exceed your quota.
There's
all right,
19%.
Go home.
Sorry.
That
is not fair. That's what we're trying to change.
Fair, right?
That's where we've gone to the Department of Justice.
Discrimination.
That's correct.
Yeah, in another word. Okay. You just mentioned about Asia, even China, though. So, and I really want to touch a little bit.
Let's talk a little bit about China, because as chairman of the committee, I led a large delegation there, 8 members, last year to China to work on the bilateral. To work on the bilateral investment treaty.
I see.
And we're working very closely, trying to make it easier for those who are in the United States doing business, doing commercial activity, or those in China doing commercial activity here. If we get this bilateral investment treaty done, it will make dispute resolution much easier. And that's why we're working with Beijing on this issue.
I see.
And another issue I would just mention here is that we've seen $600 billion in economic and commercial activity between China and the United States. As we focus on Asia, we're focusing, for those of us on the Pacific Rim here in California, on basically the future opportunity all across Asia to create more jobs, to create more opportunity, but we're also building a cultural awareness, a deeper understanding. So whether it's commercial activity, people-to-people exchanges, or whether it's what we can do in terms of having greater cultural understanding. All of this is going to build a relationship between Asia and the United States.
I see, I see. Sir, maybe one last question, if
Yes,
I'm not taking
sure.
too much of your time.
Right.
Now in the confusion right after election with Donald Trump as the president-elect, do you foresee, maybe too early to say, you may skip.
No, go ahead.
Do you foresee a continuation of your pursuit and
Well,
more chances, or a block?
Here's my observation. I chair the Foreign Affairs Committee. Ultimately, we in the House of Representatives and the Senate, we write the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws, but we write the laws. And with respect to writing those laws, my goal is to continue to engage. I will lead another large delegation to China and across Asia next year. We're going to be involved in many of these issues, continuing to engage on the bilateral investment treaty and so forth. So there will be some issues, obviously, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership that now doesn't have the support of the administration to go forward. But there will be other issues in terms of engagement, specifically on bilateral investment treaty, where I would expect that we can continue to work in a bipartisan way, which is my role, my responsibility, in order to deepen and strengthen the relationship between Asia and the United States.
In other words, regardless of the change of the presidency, you will put up your unrelenting efforts.
Our efforts, exactly, unrelenting efforts, because we understand, especially as Californians, whether we're Republicans or Democrats, the unique position that we have here in order to be involved in the economic growth and the opportunity that is created.
And consistency.
And do it consistently. And
you know
so
what,
it's
sir?
a win-win.
You know what, sir? That's exactly what voters need.
Yes.
That's exactly what voters need to be represented.
And we have 44 members on my Foreign Affairs Committee, of which I chair. And my goal is to take, you know, when I was in Asia, I take equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats. And my goal is to forge a bipartisan consensus, and engagement is part of this. To the extent that I can bring large delegations to Asia and have the members understand more, especially the newer members to the committee. And then, you know, we're the ones that pass the legislation in the Congress. And
you
that's
are so
my goal.
friendly, that probably make me just a little more rapacious. May I ask one more, please?
Sure, but of course.
How do you predict with the Donald presidency the U.S.-China relationship is going to the positive side or negative side?
Hard to predict, but I would say this. Since Nixon's engagement with China, we can see what the results have been worldwide in terms of more economic activity.
No doubt.
You look around the globe and you think about the millions of people, because of economic activity around the globe, that have been lifted out of poverty.
You're right.
And so engagement is the right strategy. Both on the commercial front, it needs to be fair. That's why we're working on the bilateral investment treaty.
You're right.
But we also have to continue to look at what we do in terms of the people-to-people exchanges. I do a lot of this, you know, visiting universities and building those ties. And we really, I think, need to understand this cultural aspect, which through films we now have a deeper understanding. And you know, all of this also, I think, is amplified by what we do in the district. I've opened an office, as you know, 4 years ago in East San Gabriel Valley in an underserved area. And so I have bilingual staff there. We work with interns from the community. We, frankly, also have opportunities in Washington, D.C., both on the Foreign Affairs Committee staff, where we work with interns, and on my personal staff. So one of the things we have done is bring people up through opportunities to serve first as interns, then as staff members, and they move up through the system. And so we're continuing
Thank you, sir.
that engagement.
Thank you very much. And my audience, we're so proud of Californians. because we made a right choice to have him reelected. I would say there has to be reelected until someday they say, hey, there's a term limit or something like that, right? So thank you very much
good to
for
be
answering my questions. I still have more, but looking at your schedules, I'm doing overtime already. Okay. Thank you very much, my dear audiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.